Story number 1. The Hollow Suburb. Back in the summer of 2021, Clara, found myself driving down the serpentine roads leading into Ashgrove, a small suburb on the outskirts of Milwaukee. Along with my childhood friend, Leo, I had returned to find answers about the eerie incidents that occurred every Halloween. I remember how Ashgrove seemed frozen in time, its old houses casting long shadows over the streets. Leo and I had enlisted the help of 3 specialists: Natalie, a paranormal investigator, Dr. Henry, an archaeologist with a passion for local legends, and Amber, a local journalist who had extensively covered the Ashgrove anomalies. One evening, while Leo and I revisited our childhood home, a piercing scream broke the silence. It was Amber. She had stumbled upon a series of old letters in the attic, recounting the tale of a coven that resided in Ashgrove during the 1800s. Their leader, a powerful witch named Alara, was rumored to have bound the spirits of the town's children to the land, ensuring they returned every Halloween. Dr. Henry discovered that Ashgrove was built on ancient burial grounds. The townsfolk, in a bid to attain immortality, made a pact with Alara. But things went awry, and instead of immortality, their souls became trapped, forever reliving their last moments. As Halloween night approached, the atmosphere grew tense. Shadows seemed to dance in the corners of our eyes. Natalie, with her equipment, started picking up odd frequencies, signaling paranormal activity. The dead of Ashgrove were restless, and they made sure we felt it. On the eve of Halloween, at the heart of Ashgrove, we decided to confront the spirits. Natalie chanted incantations, as Dr. Henry laid out artifacts believed to appease the lost souls. But what we didn't expect was for Alara's spirit to appear, enraged and accusing us of trying to undo her work. The air grew frigid. Leo, holding an amulet we had found among the letters, stepped forward. "We just want to free them," he said, his voice unwavering. To our surprise, Alara's fury faded, replaced by a deep sadness. She confessed to seeking love and loyalty, which she tried to achieve through her dark magic. Seeing the sincerity in Leo's eyes, Alara agreed to release the souls. As the clock struck midnight, the spirits of Ashgrove, children and townsfolk alike, began ascending towards the sky, their chains of torment finally broken. I left Ashgrove with mixed feelings. The horrors of the past were undeniable, but so was the redemption we had witnessed. The tale of Ashgrove remains a testament to the lengths people go to for love and the prices they pay for their actions. Every Halloween, as children laugh and play, I remember the lost souls of Ashgrove and hope they found the peace they so dearly sought. Story number 2. Whispers in Windbrook. It was late 2021 when Jake, decided to venture back into Windbrook, a suburb I once called home. Together with Sarah, my college sweetheart, we had made a pact to uncover the truth behind the ghostly apparitions that haunted our town every Halloween. To aid in our quest, we roped in 3 experts: Owen, a historian with an encyclopedic knowledge of Windbrook's dark past; Mia, a seasoned psychic known to communicate with spirits; and Alex, an investigative journalist with an affinity for uncovering hidden truths. One day, as I was walking down Maple Street, an old lullaby wafted through the air. Chills ran down my spine, for this was the same tune my grandmother used to hum, a melody she said was tied to Windbrook's ghosts. Delving deep into the town records, Owen stumbled upon a harrowing tale from the 1920s. A mysterious illness had gripped Windbrook, snatching away its young. In their grief, the townspeople had sought the help of a wandering shaman, who promised to bring the children back. Instead, on Halloween, their spirits returned, forever locked between life and death. As Halloween neared, Mia began sensing an increase in paranormal activity. She held a seance to communicate with the spirits, and what we heard left us shocked. The children's souls were trapped by the shaman's curse, and they pleaded with us to free them. Guided by the spirit's whispers, we found ourselves at an abandoned chapel on Halloween night. As I walked through the crumbling archway, memories flooded back. This was where the townspeople had made their desperate pact with the shaman. With the chapel as the epicenter, Mia began her ritual to break the curse, Owen recounting the history to guide the spirits, while Alex documented every spine-chilling moment. Suddenly, the wind howled, and a deafening silence ensued. Then, a child's voice echoed, "Thank you." Before our eyes, ethereal figures, children donning 1920s attire, rose, playing and laughing, before fading into the night. Tears streamed down Sarah's face as she whispered, "We did it." Winbrook's Halloween hauntings ceased from that year onwards. However, every year, as the leaves turn orange, I remember the souls we saved and the price Winbrook paid for its desperation. The tale serves as a chilling reminder of the fine line between hope and despair. Story number 3. Echoes of Edgewater. When I first returned to Edgewater, the suburb where I had spent many of my childhood summers, it was as if time had stood still. Every Halloween, the tale of the crying bride resurfaced, but in 2021, the chilling stories took on a whole new meaning. Together with my best friend, Lily, we sought to unravel the truth behind these restless spirits. To help decipher the past, we enlisted 3 experts: Grayson, an archaeologist specializing in colonial-era artifacts, Rachel, a medium known to pierce the veil between worlds, and Tristan, a tech whiz who believed in capturing evidence of the paranormal through advanced technology. One overcast evening, while I was walking past the old Edgewater mansion, I distinctly heard a whisper, "Help me," and felt a cold hand brush against mine. Panic surged through me, and I rushed back to share my experience with the group. Rachel, always attuned to the spiritual realm, was adamant about conducting a seance within the mansion. Grayson had already uncovered evidence that the place had been built atop an older structure, perhaps a chapel or sanctuary from the 1700s. On a fateful October night, we gathered in the heart of the mansion. As Rachel began her incantations, Tristan's equipment flickered erratically, capturing ghostly apparitions and heart-wrenching screams. Grayson, poring over an old diary he discovered, narrated the tragic tale of Eliza, a bride from the colonial era. Jilted at the altar, she had taken her life in the very spot we stood. The spirits that haunted Edgewater were not just Eliza's, but all those who had faced tragic ends within its confines. Suddenly, Rachel, her voice not entirely her own, spoke out. The altar, broken vows, set it right. Guided by this revelation, Grayson realized that to free the spirits, we had to recreate the altar and hold a symbolic wedding ceremony. While Grayson and I frantically arranged the altar using old artifacts, Lily, dressed as a bride, stood ready, while Tristan documented each second. As Rachel chanted vows from centuries ago, the atmosphere grew heavy, almost suffocating. A piercing cry echoed, followed by an eerily calming silence. As dawn broke, we felt an overwhelming sense of peace enveloping the mansion. Tristan's equipment, which had previously captured unsettling paranormal activity, now showed nothing. The following Halloween, Edgewater was free from spectral cries or ghostly apparitions. Yet, every time I drive past the old mansion, memories of that night rush back, reminding me of the thin boundary separating our world from the one beyond. Story number 4. Whispers of Windridge. When I moved to Windridge, a peaceful suburb, it was to escape the hustle of city life. Little did I know, the silent streets concealed tales darker than any urban legend. Sarah, my childhood friend, had invited me to stay with her in her family home. The house, a massive Victorian edifice, had been in her family for generations. Within days of my arrival, strange occurrences began. One night, I was walking down the tree-lined avenue when a faint lullaby drifted through the cold wind. Turning around, I saw the translucent figure of a child, bouncing a ball which emanated an eerie glow. Terrified, I hurried back to Sarah's place. To understand these occurrences, we decided to dig deeper and summon 3 experts. First, there was Cole, a historian passionate about the local lore. Next was Elena, an investigative journalist who had covered numerous supernatural occurrences. And lastly, Seth, a psychologist intrigued by the connection between places and the human psyche. Elena had uncovered old newspaper clippings about a school that once stood where Sarah's house now did. A terrible fire had taken many young lives, and the school's ruins were incorporated into the new house's foundation. One evening, while Seth and I were exploring the basement, we stumbled upon a sealed-off classroom. Inside, child-sized desks were covered in ash, and the blackboard still had lessons written on it. Cole, delving into archives, discovered that the school's headmistress was rumored to have practiced dark arts. She was believed to have made a pact to ensure her eternal life, at the cost of the children's souls. Driven by a mission to release these trapped spirits, we held a seance. With Elena's recordings echoing children's laughter and Sarah reciting old town prayers, the room grew icy. An apparition of the headmistress appeared, warning us to leave. But, bolstered by our determination, we pressed on. Seth suggested confronting the entity by reconstructing the past. We set the room to resemble a typical school day, hoping to trap the headmistress in her own memories. As the clock struck midnight, the room was filled with ghostly children reciting lessons. Sarah, acting as their teacher, ordered the headmistress to release the souls. A battle of wills ensued, with the room shaking and windows shattering. And then, as suddenly as it began, a deafening silence took over. When the dust settled, the children's spirits, freed from their torment, thanked us before fading away. The headmistress, her power diminished, vanished, her screams echoing in the void. The following days brought peace to Windridge, with no more ghostly sightings or eerie lullabies. Though the memory of that fateful night haunts my dreams, I take solace in knowing that we freed innocent souls trapped in an endless nightmare. Story number 5. The Shadows of Hollowbrook Drive. Back in 2021, I had been living in the suburb of Hollowbrook for a mere 6 months. Little did I know that beneath the veneer of white picket fences and manicured lawns lay tales that would chill one's bones. I remember it started in late October. As I was driving home from work, the twilight casting elongated shadows on the road, my car suddenly stalled on Hollowbrook Drive, right outside an old, dilapidated mansion. Disturbed, I caught a glimpse of a pale face staring at me from one of the windows, only to disappear seconds later. The next day, I shared my experience with my roommate, Lucy. Intrigued, she introduced me to 3 of her friends, all professionals in their own right, who might be able to shed some light on my unsettling encounter. First, there was Clara, an archaeologist who had a penchant for local history. Damien was a parapsychologist, eager to study unexplained phenomena. Lastly, Vanessa, a freelance journalist, always had her nose in the town's hidden stories. Over coffee, Clara revealed that the mansion once belonged to the Blackwoods, a family rumored to have been involved in occult practices. They had mysteriously vanished one Halloween night, leaving behind tales of dark rituals and ghostly apparitions. One evening, while Vanessa and I were walking past the mansion, a cold wind blew, and we heard whispers, like fragments of a long-forgotten conversation. Curiosity piqued, we decided to investigate the mansion further. Armed with equipment and Damien's knowledge, we ventured inside. The air was thick with tension, and every creak of the floorboards sent shivers down our spines. In the grand hall, Damien set up a device to capture electronic voice phenomena. Soon, chilling voices echoed, speaking of rituals, sacrifice, and an eternal curse. In the basement, amidst cobwebs, Clara found an old journal detailing the Blackwoods' experiments with the afterlife. They believed they could attain immortality but had instead trapped restless spirits within the mansion walls. Lucy, remembering an old town legend, suggested performing a cleansing ritual on Halloween night. The legend spoke of freeing trapped souls using the very rituals the Blackwoods practiced. Halloween arrived with an eerie mist enveloping Hollowbrook. With the journal as our guide, we chanted incantations, with Vanessa documenting every moment. Just past midnight, the mansion came alive. Shadows danced on the walls, ghostly figures roamed the halls, and the air grew cold. As Lucy recited the final words, a blinding light engulfed the mansion. The ground trembled, and a piercing scream echoed. Then, as suddenly as it started, everything went silent. Emerging from the mansion, we knew we had succeeded. The restless spirits of Hollowbrook Drive had found their peace. And though the town remains as idyllic as ever, those who pass by the old Blackwood mansion swear they can still hear the faintest of whispers on a cold Halloween night. Story number 6. The Haunting of Oak Ridge Lane. 2019 was the year I shifted to the tranquil suburb of Oak Ridge. I quickly befriended Mark, my next-door neighbor. We'd often take long drives or walks, exploring the neighborhood and swapping stories about our lives. Little did I know the bone-chilling history that one particular house on Oak Ridge Lane held. One evening, as Mark and I were walking, he pointed to an old, boarded-up mansion, cautioning me to never venture near it, especially as Halloween neared. Intrigued, I pressed him for details, but he remained silent, his face ashen. Wanting to uncover the secrets of the mansion, I reached out to 3 acquaintances who had the skills to assist. Sarah was a local historian with a vast knowledge of Oak Ridge's past. Kyle, an investigative journalist, had covered many eerie stories, while Emma, a medium, claimed to communicate with spirits. One evening, Sarah found an old newspaper clipping detailing a tragedy at the mansion. A family had been brutally murdered, and the case was never solved. The article mentioned how every Halloween, strange occurrences were reported: ghostly apparitions, unexplained noises, and objects moving on their own. Emma suggested we conduct a seance at the mansion on Halloween to connect with the spirits and perhaps unveil the mystery. I was reluctant, but curiosity got the better of me. On Halloween night, under a crescent moon, our group gathered inside the dilapidated mansion. The air was thick with anticipation. As Emma began the seance, the temperature dropped suddenly, making our breaths visible. An unseen force blew out the candles, plunging us into darkness. Through the silence, a soft voice echoed, "Help us, find the truth, set us free." Sarah then unveiled another piece of history. The murdered family had a valuable heirloom, a diamond necklace that had disappeared the night of the tragedy. Many believed the murders were motivated by this. Kyle remembered covering a story about a similar necklace recently discovered and auctioned. The buyer was a wealthy entrepreneur from Oak Ridge itself. As dawn approached, we decided to confront the entrepreneur. With evidence gathered and Emma's ability to communicate with the spirits, we managed to get a confession. The entrepreneur's grandfather had been the murderer, lured by the allure of the necklace. The spirits of the mansion, with their story now out in the open, were finally at peace. The haunting of Oak Ridge Lane ceased, but the memories of that fateful Halloween night remain etched in my mind forever. Story number 7. Echoes of Whispering Pines. In 2020, I had moved to the peaceful suburb of Whispering Pines, thinking it would be a fresh start away from the chaos of the city. I was wrong. My neighbor, Jamie, was a friendly guy with a penchant for campfire stories. One evening, he shared a tale about a derelict house on Hollow Street. Locals believed that every Halloween, the house echoed with the cries of its past. Intrigued, I gathered a group of individuals, Zoe, an archaeologist who had been studying the ancient burial grounds near the town, Alex, a sound engineer intrigued by the eerie recordings from Hollow Street, and Mia, a paranormal investigator whose experiences had taken her across the country. As Halloween approached, Mia proposed that we camp inside the house to document any supernatural activities. I was apprehensive, but my curiosity drove me to agree. On the night of October 31st, as the wind rustled and the moonlight bathed the house, we settled inside, equipped with cameras and sound equipment. Hours into the night, Alex's recorders picked up soft lullabies, childlike giggles, and hurried footsteps. Suddenly, Zoe recalled an old legend she had stumbled upon. Long ago, Whispering Pines had been the site of a settlement where a family mysteriously disappeared, leaving behind only their youngest daughter. She had been taken in by another family, but she often sang lullabies in hopes of calling her family back to her. Mia's instruments detected a sudden spike in paranormal activity around us. Shadows darted across the walls, and cold gusts of wind blew from nowhere. Mia attempted to communicate, asking for the spirits to relay their story. I felt a cold hand touch mine, and a vision flooded my mind, a young girl singing beneath a tree, waiting for a family that would never return. The following day, Zoe discovered a set of unmarked graves near the house. Alex's recordings, when enhanced, whispered a name repeatedly, Lila. Determined to grant peace to the restless spirits, we held a small memorial service for the forgotten family, honoring their memories and acknowledging their untimely fate. Since that night, Hollow Street has been silent. But every Halloween, when children sing and laughter fills the air, I remember Lila and the echoes of Whispering Pines. Story number 8. The Unsettling Reel. In 2019, I moved to the picturesque suburb of Cedar Ridge. Little did I know, beneath its facade was a haunting secret. A few weeks into my stay, I became friends with Clara, a local librarian. One evening, she told me about an old cinema, the Starlight, which was said to be haunted. She had found some old film reels that were rumored to have unsettling footage. Curiosity piqued, we decided to watch them. We gathered a group: Ethan, a film historian fascinated by old cinema, Lucas, a technology expert specializing in vintage projectors, and Natalie, a journalist who had covered numerous supernatural events. Inside the dimly lit room of Clara's house, Lucas set up the projector. The first reel revealed the town's 1950s Halloween celebrations. However, as the film progressed, shadowy figures seemed to lurk at the periphery of the festivities. Suddenly, the reel ended with the image of a woman being pulled into the woods. Horrified, I recalled a story from an old town newspaper about a woman named Madeline who had disappeared during a Halloween party in 1956. Her body was never found, but her last known location was near the Starlight. Natalie, always the investigator, found more information. It turned out Madeline had rejected a lover who was obsessed with capturing her on film. The night grew darker, and as Ethan loaded the next reel, we heard soft whispers. The scene showed the interior of the cinema. Disturbingly, one by one, the moviegoers turned to stare directly into the camera, their eyes devoid of life. It was as if they were trying to communicate with us. Suddenly, the projector malfunctioned, but not before revealing a quick frame of the same obsessed lover, holding a film reel with the word Madeline written on it. Lucas managed to get the equipment running again, and the final reel was the most haunting. It showed Madeline, bound and gagged, with the lover whispering to her, "Forever," on film. The group sat in stunned silence, realizing the magnitude of what we had discovered. The whispers grew louder, and Clara's lights began to flicker. Determined to give Madeline's spirit peace, Natalie wrote an article about the haunting films, bringing the story to light. We also held a memorial for Madeline and the other souls trapped in the footage. The cinema was eventually torn down, and the films were given a ceremonial burial. However, every Halloween, when the wind blows through Cedar Ridge, the whispers return. A chilling reminder of the dark past I had uncovered. Story number 9. Echoes of Hollowbrook. Back in 2020, I landed a job as a real estate agent in Hollowbrook, a suburb surrounded by thick woods. At first, everything seemed ordinary until Halloween drew near. I befriended Layla, another agent with a fascination for Hollowbrook's history. Over coffee, she shared whispers of the haunted Hargrove Mansion, long abandoned at the town's edge. Being skeptics, we planned a visit on Halloween night. For added expertise, We invited Dr. Emily Roberts, a historian with a penchant for urban legends, Mark, an audio technician to document any eerie sounds, and Blake, a paranormal investigator who owned an array of ghost-detecting gadgets. The evening of our visit, the mansion loomed against the backdrop of a setting sun. Its grandeur was hidden beneath layers of neglect. Pushing open the creaky front door, a sudden cold gripped us. It was as if the house didn't want us there. Inside, with Mark's microphones catching even the faintest whisper, Emily began reciting the mansion's history. A wealthy family, the Hargroves, had resided there until their sudden disappearance in 1920. They were last seen at a lavish Halloween ball. Blake's devices immediately started picking up fluctuations. They led us to a grand ballroom, where I distinctly heard the soft hum of old music and distant chatter, as if a party from a bygone era was still in progress. Mark confirmed the audio captured the inexplicable sounds. As we ventured deeper, Layla discovered an old journal, its pages yellowed with age. It belonged to Lydia Hargrove, the family's youngest daughter. The diary entries narrated a forbidden romance between Lydia and a commoner named Samuel. The final entry, dated October 31st, 1920, hinted at a secret rendezvous during the Halloween ball. Following the clues from the diary, we descended into the mansion's cellar. There, surrounded by cobwebs, stood a time-worn statue of two dancers, remarkably lifelike in detail. Emily, piecing the story together, realized with horror that the statues were, in fact, Lydia and Samuel, turned to stone by an unknown force. Blake's devices went haywire. Ghostly apparitions danced around us, reenacting the fateful ball. Suddenly, Lydia's spirit approached, whispering, "Help us." Determined to free the trapped souls, we decided to host a Halloween ball the next year, in honor of Lydia and Samuel. The town came together, and as the clock struck midnight, the spectral figures began to fade. The morning after, the statues of Lydia and Samuel were gone. In their place lay two skeletons, hands intertwined. As I drove past the mansion in the following days, I'd sometimes catch fleeting sounds of old music or see apparitions dancing. But this time, they danced with joy, not sorrow. Hollowbrook's haunted history had been put to rest, at least for now. Story number 10. The Unearthed Secrets of Millwood Lane. Millwood Lane, a quaint suburban avenue, was where I, Alex, settled down after college. It was also where I met Sarah, a journalist keen on unearthing the buried secrets of every place she visited. We hit it off immediately. One night, Sarah shared stories about inexplicable phenomena on Millwood Lane, windows shattering without reason, strange shadows, and whispered conversations from vacant homes. With Halloween around the corner, we decided to delve deeper. Our team consisted of Sarah and me, Peter, a seasoned archaeologist, Mia, an expert in folklore, and Luke, a detective with an astute analytical mind. Our first stop was the town's library. Mia, with her extensive knowledge, guided us to a forgotten section. We discovered that Millwood Lane was built on the site of an old settlement that mysteriously burnt down in 1871. Only remnants remained, and a new town sprouted from its ashes. Sarah's journalistic instincts led us to the house at the end of the lane, supposedly the oldest. As we approached, I felt a chill, despite the warmth of the evening. Peter, curious about the land's history, started an excavation in the backyard. What he unearthed was both astonishing and horrifying, a set of old shackles and remnants of burnt wood, indicating a potential site where prisoners were kept or, worse, executed. Luke, piecing the clues together, proposed a theory. The old settlement was not just a town, it was a hub for dark rituals and practices. The shackles were proof that individuals were held against their will, possibly sacrificed. Mia added another layer to our discoveries. According to the folklore she had studied, the spirits of those wronged during their lifetime often lingered, especially if they met a tragic end. And so, our team set out to free these spirits. On Halloween night, in the dim light of the moon, we held a ceremony at the very spot Peter had excavated. Mia chanted verses to guide the spirits to peace, while Luke and Sarah documented the events. I remember the cold wind that suddenly whipped around us and the sensation of countless invisible eyes watching. By the time dawn approached, the atmosphere had changed. The weight that had once pressed down on Millwood Lane lifted, replaced by a tranquil calm. In the days that followed, the mysterious occurrences ceased. Homes that were once plagued by whispers and shadows now stood in peace. It seemed that our efforts had not been in vain. Yet every Halloween, as I walk down Millwood Lane, I can't help but glance towards the old house and the spot where we unearthed the shackles. I feel a lingering presence, not malevolent, but grateful. Grateful that their stories were finally heard, and they were given the peace they had been denied in life. Story number 11. The Haunting Echoes of Cedar Ridge. I can never forget Cedar Ridge, a tight-knit suburb I once called home. The serene community was the last place anyone would associate with the eerie events that took place. That was until I met Clara, a local historian with an insatiable curiosity. Clara shared tales of bizarre occurrences, flickering lights, mysterious cold spots, and most alarmingly, children's laughter when none were around. Intrigued, we formed a group dedicated to unveiling Cedar Ridge's secrets. Besides Clara and me, our team comprised Ethan, a tech was known for his paranormal equipment, Nadia, an architect familiar with the designs of the suburb's old buildings, and Jake, a parapsychologist. We pinpointed the most active location, a dilapidated mansion at Cedar Ridge's very edge. My first memory of that place was its suffocating aura. As I walked its hallways, I could feel a palpable sadness. Ethan set up his equipment, capturing anomalies, erratic temperature changes, and ghostly voices whispering, "Help us." As Nadia examined the house's blueprint, she found a concealed room behind the main hall's fireplace. Our group was divided, Clara, Jake, and I decided to inspect the room, while Ethan and Nadia monitored from the main hall. Breaking down the sealed entrance, we were hit by an overpowering stench of decay. Inside was a room with chains on the walls and old, tattered journals on the ground. Clara picked up one, her hands trembling as she read out the dark tales of rituals and sacrifices of young souls, practiced by the suburb's founders. The mansion was their hidden chamber of horrors. Jake hypothesized that the spirits of those tormented souls were trapped, causing the paranormal activities. Our mission was clear: we needed to free them. On the eve of Halloween, we gathered in the concealed room. With Ethan's tech recording and Clara reciting a cleansing chant, we hoped to guide the souls to peace. As she chanted, the temperature dropped, and the room was filled with ghostly apparitions of children, their eyes filled with tears. I can't describe the feeling, but in that moment, I felt their pain, their desperation. Hours seemed like minutes, and by the end, a feeling of tranquility enveloped Cedar Ridge. The following days saw a transformation. The once haunting children's laughter was replaced by genuine joy as families played in the parks. The mansion, while still standing, no longer held its menacing aura. To this day, when I revisit Cedar Ridge, I can't help but think of that concealed room. Although the tortured souls found peace, the memories serve as a reminder of the dark past that once lurked beneath the suburb's picturesque facade. Story number 12. Lost Whispers of Hollow Creek. Whenever I pass the Welcome to Hollow Creek sign, chills take over, bringing back memories that haunt my every waking hour. Hollow Creek, a quaint suburb in the United States, was where I spent my most harrowing Halloween. Lucia, my childhood friend and now a journalist, had contacted me about an assignment. Being a photographer, I was excited about the opportunity to collaborate. But nothing could prepare us for the horrors we'd unearth. Our team included Max, a determined detective, Lydia, an expert in old dialects and manuscripts, and Alex, a sound engineer passionate about capturing the supernatural. Lucia's recent scoop hinted at a long-forgotten tale of Hollow Creek, a legend of spirits trapped in perpetual torment. Keen to unravel the story, we ventured into the oldest part of the suburb, dominated by an ancient, abandoned chapel. The first night, as I was setting up my camera equipment outside the chapel, I captured a spectral figure in the viewfinder. Startled, I showed the team, which cemented our resolve to dig deeper. Inside the chapel, Lydia stumbled upon an old manuscript written in an archaic dialect. Translating it revealed a gruesome tale, a nefarious cult that used to reside in Hollow Creek. They performed dark rituals within the chapel's confines, offering innocent souls to dark entities. Max, utilizing his detective skills, linked several missing person cases from the 1900s to the cult's timeline. It seemed their spirits were what haunted Hollow Creek. We decided to conduct a seance, led by Lucia. As Alex set up sensitive microphones to capture any anomalies, the atmosphere grew tense. I remember Lydia's voice, a gentle whisper as she recited the translated incantations. The room grew cold, the candles flickering as ghostly apparitions began emerging. Despair etched their faces. I still recall one, a young girl, reaching out to Lucia, mouthing the word free. For hours, Lucia communicated, understanding their sorrow, their longing for release. As dawn approached, Lydia, using the manuscript, performed a ritual meant to free the lost souls. The sun's first rays illuminated the chapel, the heaviness lifting. We left Hollow Creek, the echoes of its dark past now silent. To this day, when people ask me about the most chilling assignment I've ever had, I recount the Halloween at Hollow Creek. The shadows may have dispersed, but the memories, the desperate eyes of the lost souls, remain, reminding me of the thin line separating the living and the dead. Story number 13. Whispering Woods of Westridge. Each time I lace up my hiking boots, the haunting memories from Westridge engulf me. Situated on the outskirts of a peaceful suburb, Westridge Woods always had an eerie legend attached to it. Growing up, we heard tales of apparitions and strange occurrences in those woods, but in 2020, I experienced the horror firsthand. Emma, my best friend since childhood and an aspiring filmmaker, wanted to create a documentary on Westridge's legends. To support her, I offered my skills as a researcher. We gathered a team: Ben, a historian with a knack for urban legends, Claire, an experienced medium, and Tyler, a tech expert responsible for lighting and sound. As we set up camp on Halloween night, I distinctly remember the dense fog that seemed to blanket the woods. Our firelight barely pierced through the mist. Emma was the first to notice the silhouettes, distant figures that vanished if stared at directly. In the heart of the woods, Ben discovered remnants of an old settlement. From his research, he surmised it was the forgotten hamlet of Esterlin, which mysteriously vanished from records after the 1800s. But why? As I was rummaging through old manuscripts, a diary dated 1892 caught my attention. It belonged to a resident of Esterlin, documenting the villagers' descent into madness after uncovering an ancient relic. The last entry described a ritual, a desperate attempt to seal away a malevolent entity they had unwittingly unleashed. Claire, sensitive to the spiritual realm, felt a powerful energy emanating from a nearby clearing. Following her lead, we found a stone circle with the relic at its center. Tyler, attempting to film it, found his equipment malfunctioning. We decided to recreate the ritual from the diary. As midnight approached, Claire chanted incantations, while Ben and I arranged the stones. The forest seemed to come alive, whispering secrets from the shadows. Suddenly, the apparitions became clearer, the lost souls of Esterlin, trapped in perpetual torment. I remember one, a young boy, pointing towards the relic, urging us to complete the ritual. As Emma captured the final moments, a gust of wind extinguished our candles. Silence enveloped us. When we relit them, the relic was dormant, and the apparitions were gone. We left Westridge at dawn, the woods forever changed in our minds. The documentary remains a testament to that harrowing night, but I often wonder about Esterlin's souls. Were they truly freed, Or do they still wander, waiting for the next unsuspecting soul to venture into the whispering woods of Westridge? Story number 14. The Screams of Sundale Manor. Growing up in Sundale, a suburb renowned for its serenity, I never expected that its tranquility would shatter so dramatically. It was October 2020 when my friend Lydia proposed a daring plan, a Halloween sleepover at the long-abandoned Sundale Manor. As teenagers, our sense of invincibility often superseded our better judgment. Lydia, an avid photographer, was eager to capture the decrepit beauty of the mansion. To make the event more memorable, she invited a few friends: Jackson, a budding paranormal investigator, Zoe, a journalist for our school paper, and Ethan, an architecture student intrigued by the manor's design. The night we stepped into Sundale Manor, an uneasy feeling settled in. A once magnificent place, it now lay rotting, reeking of dampness and decay. Lydia excitedly started clicking photographs while Ethan marveled at the Gothic arches and spiraling staircases. But I couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched. As the evening wore on, Jackson brought out an old Ouija board. The planchette began moving almost immediately. "Help," it spelled out. Lydia, ever the skeptic, laughed it off. But Zoe, with her journalist instincts, started asking questions. From the Ouija session and Zoe's relentless questioning, we pieced together a terrifying narrative. The manor, in its glory days, was home to a family with dark secrets. A forbidden ritual was performed, trapping innocent souls within the mansion's walls. Later that night, I was awakened by heart-wrenching screams echoing through the corridors. In a trance, I followed the sounds to the basement. What I witnessed there chills me to this day, ghostly apparitions reenacting the ritual that sealed their fate. Horrified, I rushed to wake the others. Jackson, recalling an exorcism technique he'd read about, decided we had to free the souls. Using salt and candles, he drew a protective circle around us. As he chanted, the temperature plummeted, and a gust of wind extinguished our candles. When daylight finally broke, the atmosphere in the manor felt lighter. However, upon exiting, we found Lydia's camera with a final picture, an old family portrait, but in place of the family's faces were our own. I never returned to Sundale Manor, and neither did my friends. We all went our separate ways, but the weight of that night still lingers. Every Halloween, I'm reminded of the manor's screams and pray that no other curious souls decide to uncover its horrifying secrets. Story number 15. The Shadows of Hollow Creek. I've always been a magnet for the bizarre, but nothing compares to the Halloween of 2019, in Hollow Creek, a serene suburb that hid a malignant past. I had recently moved to the area, and my neighbor, Clara, had mentioned some strange happenings around the old town library. She was a bookworm, often drawn to the history section that told tales of the town's past. One evening, Clara invited me to a small gathering at the library after hours. Along with us was Finn, a local historian, Natalie, a sound engineer intrigued by the purported whispers from the library, and Alex, a detective with a penchant for the supernatural. Walking into the library that night, the air felt dense. I could sense an inexplicable dread as I entered the history section. That's when Clara handed me an old diary she had found. Dated 1891, it belonged to a woman named Eleanor who wrote about a forbidden ritual that trapped innocent spirits between the living and the dead. As I read aloud from the diary, the room grew colder. Natalie's sound equipment began picking up distorted murmurs. Suddenly, an apparition of Eleanor appeared, pointing towards a hidden section in the library. Curiosity overcame our fear, and we followed her guidance. We were led to a secret room filled with old tomes and arcane symbols. On the central pedestal lay another diary, this one detailing the events leading to the ritual. Finn, piecing together the town's history and the information from the diary, hypothesized that the spirits trapped in the library were seeking release. Alex, drawing from some of his detective experience and a few supernatural cases he had heard of, suggested we attempt to recreate the ritual, but in reverse. Using the instructions from the diary and a few items from around the library, we began. The atmosphere thickened, shadows danced, and the whispers grew louder. Just as I began to doubt our decision, a blinding light engulfed the room. When our vision cleared, the room returned to its original state, minus the ominous ambience. We left the library with a mix of exhaustion and relief, grateful to have released the trapped souls. The library's ambience was forever changed, and the whispers that once haunted its halls were silenced. To this day, I'm reminded of the shadows of Hollow Creek every Halloween, thankful that the spirits found peace but ever wary of the unseen dangers that may lurk around the corner.